So imagine for a second if the laws of modern physics, and I mean specifically stuff like electricity and magnetism, if they weren't just, elegant metaphors for the spiritual world. Picture a reality where they were the actual literal mechanics of your soul.
Right, because usually when we venture into discussions about theology or the spiritual realm in general, there's this heavy expectation of the ethereal.
Exactly. You open a religious text and you expect poetry.
Yeah, you expect a theologian to just point to the sky and talk about invisible grace, something completely detached from the physical world.
Right. Kept safely walled off from the cold, hard, measurable realities of a physics lab. Like faith is meant to be felt in your chest, not measured on a voltmeter.
Exactly. But then you step into the source material we're exploring today, and that boundary between the laboratory and the prayer mat is it's entirely demolished.
It really is. We are looking at a cosmological landscape today that is breathtakingly mechanical. Welcome to our deep dive. Today, we're immersing ourselves in a highly intricate, multi-dimensional framework mapped out in a text titled Another Dimension, Magnetic Soul and Electrical Spirit.
Which is such a striking title right out of the gate.
It is. And this is the brilliant intellectual work of Dr. Khaled Waleed. Our mission for this deep dive is to navigate his unique synthesis of, theology, advanced physics, and linguistics. We want to figure out how he builds a universe where spiritual forces are strictly bound by the laws of electromagnetism.
And, this text demands a complete paradigm shift from the reader. To understand Dr. Waleed's architecture, we really have to strip away centuries of just assuming that the spirit is a ghost in the machine.
Right.
He argues that the spirit is the literal power source of the machine.
Which is wild. But before we get deep into the weeds of how this all works, I do want to establish some ground rules for our exploration today. All the concepts, the theories, the profound intellectual frameworks we are discussing today, they belong entirely to Dr. Khaled Waleed.
Yes, 100%.
We are just acting as your tour guides through his universe. Our goal is to impartially unpack the concepts contained in his original text. We're mapping the architecture of this incredibly detailed thought experiment, looking at the physics of it without, asking you to adopt it as absolute religious dogma.
We're just looking at the blueprints.
Exactly. And I will say this right at the top. If you find yourself captivated by this blend of cosmology and theology, you should absolutely explore more of these ideas by subscribing to the Almighty Covenant YouTube channel. Dr. Waleed's work is dense, it's provocative, and there is a lot more to uncover there.
It's a really vital disclaimer because the concepts challenge both traditional science and orthodox theology at the exact same time.
They really do. So to grasp how human beings operate in Dr. Waleed's framework, we have to start at the foundational forces of his universe.
Right. He takes two distinct concepts that most people, and honestly, most religious traditions, tend to mash together into one generic spiritual category.
The spirit and the soul.
Exactly. The spirit, which is ruh in Arabic, and the soul, which is nafs.
And I always thought of those two words as basically interchangeable.
Most people do.
Like you read a poem and it says, my spirit aches or my soul aches. And it implies the exact same thing, just an invisible essence inside of you. But Dr. Waleed splits them into two completely different physical forces.
He fundamentally divorces them. In his framework, the spirit, the ruh, is literal electricity.
Wow.
It's not an abstract concept. It is the electrical energy of knowledge that is blown into creation. And because it's electricity, it governs matter. It interacts with the tangible physical world.
So wait, usually we think of the spirit as the most non-physical part of us, but he associates the spirit with the physical, tangible world.
Yes. He connected to the concept of Islam, which in this specific context he defines as tangible, material submission to divine laws.
Okay, that is the core of his argument right there.
It is. The spirit is the electrical current that forces physical matter to move. It literally grounds divine action in actual, measurable physics.
So think about a nervous system, right? The electrical impulses traveling down your nerves to make your hand move. That is a tangible material action governed by an electrical charge.
Exactly. For Dr. Waleed, the divine spirit operates on that exact same principle, just on a cosmic scale.
Okay, then what is the soul? If the spirit is doing all the heavy lifting in the physical world with electricity, what role does the nafs play?
Well, if the spirit is electricity, the soul is magnetism.
Magnetism. So the soul governs energy, not matter.
Correct. The soul acts as a magnetic field. It governs the supermaterial world.
Okay.
Where the spirit is perceived through tangible material realities, like actions you can see and measure. The magnetic soul is perceived through faith, or iman, and the intangible forces of attraction and repulsion.
I want to make sure I am, like, visualizing this correctly, because treating a human being as a walking physics experiment is a huge leap.
It's massive.
If the spirit is electricity and governs the tangible, and the soul is magnetism and governs the intangible, how does a person actually experience these two distinct forces working together in their daily life?
You have to look at how electricity and magnetism interact in the physical world. In physics, they are distinct forces, but they are inextricably linked.
Right, electromagnetism.
Exactly. A moving electrical charge creates a magnetic field, and a changing magnetic field induces an electrical current. They create a unified force. Without both working in tandem, you don't get sustained, controlled movement.
Okay, that makes sense.
In Dr. Waleed's framework, you do not have a functional life force unless both the electrical spirit and the magnetic soul are interacting within you.
Let me try an analogy here. Picture a giant electric vehicle. If the universe is the EV, the spirit is the battery, it holds the raw electrical current.
That's a good way to look at it.
It's the power source that has the potential to make the vehicle move. But just dumping electricity from a battery into a void doesn't make a car drive forward.
No, it just disperses.
Right. You can have all the voltage in the world, but without a mechanism to translate it, you just have raw, unharnessed energy.
You need a motor to translate that current into physical torque.
And what is inside an EV motor? Magnets.
That's right.
The magnetic field.
Exactly.
The spirit is the electrical current from the battery, and the soul is the magnetic field in the motor. The magnetic field takes that raw electrical power, catches it, and translates it into physical movement. It turns potential energy into reality.
That's spot on. The electrical spirit provides the energy of knowledge, the tangible push. The magnetic soul provides the field of energy, the faith that receives that push and structures it.
Wow.
And this leads us to the next profound point in the text, how these two forces actually come together inside a biological vessel to create what we call life.
Because Dr. Waleed argues that the physical body, the human or insan, is just the chassis of the car.
Just a shell.
Right, it's just a vessel made of clay or dust.
Yeah.
The body itself has no life. It's just a receptacle waiting for the motor to be installed.
And the installation of that motor is what creates the Jane.
The Jane. Let's unpack that. Yeah. In this text, the Jane is defined as the combination of the spirit and the soul inside the body, right?
Yes. It acts as the actual literal motor of life. Life only exists when these two poles, the electrical spirit and the magnetic soulmate, or pair together within the vessel.
So it establishes a universe operating on sacred duality.
Nothing functions in isolation. The physical body is an inert shell until this specific electromagnetic pairing occurs.
The chronology of this creation process that Dr. Waleed outlines is fascinating. It reads less like Genesis and more like an engineering manual.
It really does.
Walk us through the sequential steps of how a human is actually brought online in this framework.
According to the text, the creation of a living being happens in very specific physics-based stages. First, the physical vessel is formed. The chassis is built.
Okay.
Then the soul, that magnetic field, is shaped and leveled within that vessel. It establishes the magnetic environment. But importantly, the vessel is not alive yet.
It's just a perfectly balanced magnetic field waiting for power.
Exactly. It's waiting for the battery to be connected. Then the spirit, the electrical energy of divine knowledge, is breathed into it.
That breath is the spark.
Yes. This breath is the completion of the circuit. The electrical spirit mates with the magnetic soul. This creates the Jan, the electromagnetic motor, which then settles into the human body and animates it. The system comes online.
And death is just hitting the reverse button on that exact sequence, isn't it?
Literally the exact reverse. First, the electrical spirit leaves. The power is cut.
So the electricity is gone.
Right. Once the electricity departs, the motor stops running. Then, the magnetic soul is captured or retrieved by the divine source.
And with both the electricity and the magnetism removed.
The bodily vessel, the chassis, simply decays and returns to dust.
I really appreciate how mechanically sound that sequence is, but there is a detail in the text regarding the word Jane that I seriously need to push back on.
Oh, the linguistic connection?
Yeah, Dr. Waleed makes this linguistic connection that feels, to me, like a massive stretch.
Let's hear it.
He points out that the English word generator, a machine that converts mechanical energy into electrical energy, sounds remarkably like the Arabic word Jane.
He does.
He links the linguistic concept of life energy to the mechanical concept of power generation. But hold on, generator comes from Latin. Genus, generare. It's a relatively modern Western scientific term.
Right.
So how can an ancient Arabic text have a literal mechanical connection to a Latin-based English word? Is he suggesting this is just a massive historical coincidence?
He's arguing the exact opposite of a coincidence, actually.
Really?
Yeah. In Dr. Waleed's framework, language itself is not accidental, nor is it purely a product of isolated human evolution.
Oh, I see where this is going.
He views language as something seeded by the divine. The phonetic sounds we use to describe physical realities like generation, energy, or motors are fundamentally, intrinsically connected to the spiritual realities they mirror.
So he's saying there is a universal fundamental language of physics hidden in our everyday speech across cultures, even spanning from ancient Arabic to Latin to modern English.
That is the implication. For Dr. Waleed, the linguistic overlap between Jane and generator isn't a historical accident, it is a deliberate clue.
A breadcrumb.
Exactly. It's a breadcrumb left in the architecture of human language to help us realize that our spiritual life and our mechanical physics are the exact same science.
That is wild.
When you say generator, you are unknowingly speaking the ancient truth of the Jame.
That is a staggering way to view language. It means every time you take a deep breath, you aren't just, filling your lungs with oxygen for cellular respiration.
No, under this framework, you are literally completing a circuit.
You are bringing your own internal electromagnetic motor online. Every breath is a pulse of the Jane, the generator.
And a generator requires a constant magnetic field function, which immediately raises the question of origin.
Right. If every human is running on this magnetic soul, where does that magnetism come from in the first place?
A magnet doesn't just will itself into existence, it inherits its magnetic charge from a larger source. So what is the original magnet in Dr. Waleed's universe?
His answer to that is incredibly bold. He asserts that God himself has a nafs, a divine soul.
A literal original source.
Yes, and this divine soul is the singular ultimate source of all magnetism, all souls in the entire universe.
He grounds this in a specific interpretation of a Quranic verse that states humanity was created like a single soul.
Which is usually just seen as a metaphor, right?
Exactly. In traditional theology, that's often read as a metaphor for human unity or brotherhood, like we're all one big family.
But in Dr. Waleed's framework,
it is a literal description of cosmic physics. There is a single cosmic energy source, God's magnetic soul, and portions of this energy are divided and distributed to all living creatures.
Think of taking one massive, infinitely powerful magnet and just striking it to create billions of microscopic magnets.
It shatters into pieces.
Right, but no matter how small those splinters get, they all retain the fundamental property of the original source. They all have a magnetic charge.
And you cannot have a magnetic charge without polarity.
True. A magnet must have a north pole and a south pole.
Right. In this framework, this inherent magnetic polarity equates to male and female. But on a much broader dimensional scale, it equates to ins, which represents the visible human world, and jinn, which represents the hidden or unseen beings.
So polarity isn't just a biological or a social construct. It is literally baked into the physics of the soul.
Yes. Dr. Waleed applies the physical laws of magnetic attraction to the very concept of existence.
Opposite poles attract, similar poles repel.
Exactly. True existence, reproduction, and the continuation of life require this magnetic attraction. It requires the marriage of opposites.
Okay, I understand how north and south attract, or male and female attract biologically. That's straightforward. But what happens with the interdimensional poles?
The ins and jinn.
Yeah. You just mentioned ins, the visible human world, and jinn, the invisible world. If they represent different poles and opposites fundamentally attract, does the text suggest there is an inherent magnetic pull between our visible world and the invisible world?
Yes.
Because if we are magnetically dragged around by unseen forces, what happens to our free will?
That tension is a central pillar of his cosmology. The text outlines that there is a necessary separation, but also a fundamental, undeniable interaction between these dimensions.
So they have to interact, but they can't crash into each other.
Right. If poles repelled each other, totally, meaning if humans only repel humans, or if they improperly converged and collapsed the distance between the visible and invisible worlds, the structured division of souls would cease.
The universe would essentially short circuit.
That's exactly what would happen.
Grab two strong magnets in your mind right now and try to push the two north poles together.
You can't do it.
Right. You can feel this squishy, invisible force field pushing back against your hands. It's a physical barrier made of nothing but energy.
Dr. Waleed is arguing that this invisible physical barrier, This exact mechanism of repulsion and attraction is what structures societies, dimensions, and species across the cosmos.
That's a profound way to look at reality.
The divine maintains that invisible barrier, which the text refers to as the barzakh. It keeps everything in its proper lane while still allowing the magnetic systems to interact and generate life.
But we don't just get to operate these divine electromagnetic motors in our lanes aimlessly forever.
No, absolutely not.
If we are running on lone power from the ultimate divine soul, we are eventually accountable to the manufacturer.
And the accounting of this energy is where Dr. Waleed's framework becomes strikingly administrative.
Yeah, his interpretation of the Day of Judgment is not a nebulous spiritual reckoning. It is a highly physical, material audit of your energy usage.
In this framework, the angel Gabriel, or Jibril, is identified as the trustworthy spirit, the Ruh al-Amin.
Now, keep our foundational definitions in mind for a second. What did we establish the spirit to be earlier?
Electricity. It governs matter and tangible reality.
Because the spirit governs matter and tangible physical records, Gabriel, as the trustworthy spirit, is inherently in charge of the physical, material accounting of our deeds.
The literalism here is just astounding.
It really is. The deeds you do in your life, the lies you tell, the help you give, they aren't just metaphorical sins or invisible good acts floating in the ether somewhere.
They're recorded as tangible material data points.
Yes. Gabriel isn't an ethereal messenger with wings playing a harp. In this cosmology, he is essentially the chief custodian of the divine electrical grid.
He oversees the material processing of human actions.
It is a rigorous, physics-based accounting, and what is perhaps most fascinating is how geographically grounded this entire cosmic event is.
Yeah, let's talk about the location.
Dr. Waleed states that this judgment takes place in a highly specific geographic location on Earth. Baca, or Jerusalem in Blessed Palestine.
Which is also referred to as the Egypt of the Quran in the text.
Okay, that requires some serious unpacking. Why root a massive, cosmic, interdimensional electromagnetic judgment in one highly specific physical city on Earth? Like, why Jerusalem? And why call it Egypt?
Well, in Dr. Waleed's physics-based theology, a massive electrical event requires a literal geographical grounding point.
A grounding wire.
Exactly. You can't just have cosmic electricity discharging randomly. It needs a node. He identifies Jerusalem as that physical node where the dimensional veil is thinnest, based on prophetic history.
Okay, that makes sense from an electrical engineering standpoint, but what about calling it Egypt?
As for calling it Egypt, in the linguistic roots he is analyzing, Egypt doesn't just refer to the modern nation-state.
Right.
It implies a bottleneck, a centralized fortress, or a focal point of civilization and judgment. Jerusalem acts as the grounding wire for the ultimate electrical audit of humanity.
So, on the Day of Judgment, Gabriel is the lead engineer at this grounding node in Jerusalem.
Yes.
He is pulling the physical data logs from every individual generator, that's you and me, to see exactly how efficiently we use the electrical spirit and magnetic soul we were loaned.
Did we generate light and aligned movement, or did we just burn out our motors with friction?
Wow. It's an audit of your electromagnetic efficiency.
But the system doesn't just drop you on Earth with a generator and walk away until the final audit.
Thankfully.
There is a real-time tracking system in place to monitor your data.
And the tracking system detailed in his reading of Surah Qaf is wild. According to this framework, you are never flying solo. Every single soul is accompanied by two invisible angelic entities from the hidden world.
These entities are assigned to your specific generator.
And they have very different jobs. One is called the driver, or sahik. The other is the witness, or shahid.
Their functions are entirely separate. The driver acts as a spiritual guide. It is positioned in front of the soul, actively helping the creature connect with God.
The text emphasizes that the driver is especially active during prayer, helping to orient the soul toward the Qibla, the direction of prayer.
It's an active, forward-leading force trying to pull your magnetic compass into alignment.
While the witness stays behind the soul, the witness doesn't interfere, it doesn't guide, it doesn't judge in real time.
It just watches.
Yeah, it just meticulously records every single action, ensuring that there is zero injustice when Gabriel conducts that final audit.
These entities are the custodians of the trust, the nafs, your specific soul that God placed in your human vessel.
The analogy that comes to mind here is a commercial flight.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, the driver is the GPS navigation system. It's actively calculating the route, trying to help you steer, recalculating when you drift, trying to get you to the divine destination.
Right.
And the witness is the airplane's black box. It sits in the tail of the plane, passively and objectively recording the telemetry, the altitude, and the flight data, regardless of whether you fly into a mountain or land safely.
The black box just collects the data.
Exactly. But here's my question about the driver, the GPS. If the driver only helps when we connect, does that mean our GPS is just muted until we consciously initiate a prayer? Are we just drifting in the dark otherwise?
This touches on the mechanics of free will in Dr. Waleed's universe. The driver cannot force the steering wheel.
Can't drive for you.
No. The intention, the act of seeking the connection, turning one's internal compass toward the truth, is what powers up the driver's ability to guide you. You have to tune your receiver to the correct frequency.
So the signal is there, but you have to actively receive it.
The driver is always broadcasting the signal, but you have to turn the radio on.
Think about those moments in your own life where you've had a sudden flash of clarity or a deep, undeniable intuition to do the right thing when you are heavily conflicted.
We all have those moments.
Under Dr. Waleed's framework, that isn't just a random firing of neurons in your prefrontal cortex. That might literally be your driver, your assigned GPS, successfully orienting your magnetic compass toward the divine because in that moment you were open to the signal.
It makes the invisible world incredibly intimate. You are part of an active, monitored grid.
Which brings us to the reality that, according to this text, our physical world is far more crowded with these invisible forces than we could ever perceive.
Crowded is an understatement. We really need to look at the ultimate environment we exist in and the final goal of this entire system.
Because it's not just humans hanging out on Earth waiting for an audit.
No, Earth is a shared dimensional space. Dr. Waleed outlines that the visible world of humans, the Nas, and the invisible world of jinn, the jinnah, exist in the exact same time and space.
We are occupying the exact same real estate.
Yes, we are separated only by that invisible magnetic barrier we discussed earlier, the barzakh.
Right.
And within both of these populations, the visible humans and the invisible jinn, there are extreme polarities. There are literal angels and demons operating within both realms.
I want to pause here for a second because we are getting into highly specific, very charged categorizations in the text.
Yes, we are.
Just as a reminder for you listening, our job today isn't to say whether this theology is absolutely true or to endorse these labels. We're just putting on our explorer hats and mapping out the exact universe Dr. Waleed has drawn in his text so we can understand the architecture of his argument impartially.
Understood. And looking objectively at his categorizations, the text states that in the human realm, the human angels are categorized as Adamite humans.
Okay.
And the human demons are categorized as Israelite humans.
To clarify, in the context of his cosmological framework, how is he defining Adamite and Israelite? Because those terms carry massive geopolitical and historical weight outside of this text.
They absolutely do. But within the strict lexicon of his theological physics, these terms are stripped of modern geopolitical or ethnic definitions.
So it's strictly a cosmological label here.
Yes, they are cosmological categories of polarity. Adamite represents the pure, angelic, aligned potential within humanity, the North Pole of spiritual alignment.
And Israel.
Israelite, in his specific structural use of the word, denotes the rebellious, demonic, or misaligned potential, the South Pole of spiritual resistance.
Okay, that makes sense within the physics framework.
He uses these terms to map the opposing magnetic forces of good and evil operating within the human dimension.
Okay, so we have these overlapping dimensions full of different entities categorized by their magnetic alignment, all sharing Earth. What is the ultimate point of all this?
That is the big question.
Why build the generators, set up the audits, share the dimensions, and assign the GPS angels? What is the end game?
The end game is an evolutionary training program. Earth is not a waiting room. It is a cosmic school.
A training program for what?
Ascension. The text argues fiercely against the idea that human beings are meant to remain stagnant.
So we're meant to evolve.
Exactly. The goal is to ascend from mere humanity, which is just operating the basic biological vessel to mankind, or Bashariya, which requires a higher level of spiritual and electromagnetic awareness.
And then?
And ultimately, the goal is to ascend from mankind to an angelic state.
Wait, that is a massive theological disruption.
It really is.
In almost all traditional theologies, angels and humans are entirely separate, static species. An angel is made of light and is an angel forever. A human is made of clay and is a human forever.
That's the orthodox view, yes.
Dr. Waleed is suggesting a spiritual promotion system where a human can literally become an angel.
That is explicitly what he is suggesting.
Does that mean the universe is constantly expanding and needing new staff to manage it?
Yes. The text states there are limitless operations of expansion in the universe. God's creation is not finished and static.
So it's continually growing.
The Earth is a localized testing module. Depending on how these overlapping dimensions interact and how efficiently you manage your specific generator, this shared space can function as a heaven or a hell.
Wow.
But the end goal is not passive resting.
You don't just pass the audit and then go sit on a cloud playing a harp for eternity.
No. You are training to become a cosmic administrator. The most purified souls, the ones who successfully balance their electrical spirit and magnetic soul, who heed their driver and pass the material audit of their witness, will be selected.
They get promoted.
They are promoted to serve directly as part of God's working tools in the management of this expanding universe.
And he specifically mentions where this high-level celestial administration is headquartered, doesn't he?
He does. The promoted angelic souls will operate specifically in the Dar al-Salam, the House of Peace, which he locates in Jerusalem.
The ultimate cosmic corner office.
It really is.
Imagine framing your current life not as a final destination, but as a cosmic internship. You are a trainee generator.
I love that phrasing.
You're learning how to calibrate your electrical spirit and your magnetic soul. And if you align them correctly, if you tune into the GPS and pass the black box audit, you get promoted to middle management in the celestial hierarchy.
You actually get to help build and maintain the expanding universe.
It grants an incredible weight and purpose to every single action. You aren't just passing time waiting to die, you are qualifying for an active role in the cosmos.
It's an incredibly empowering perspective when you really think about it.
This has been an incredibly dense, mind-bending journey today. We started by taking the foundational concepts of spirit and soul and completely redefining them.
We learned to view the spirit not as a ghost, but as literal, tangible electricity, the active energy of divine knowledge.
Right. And we saw the soul as the magnetic field, the intangible realm of faith that structures that energy.
We explored how those two forces mate inside the human chassis to create the jhana, the electromagnetic generator of life. It's a framework that proves our biology and cosmic physics are deeply mechanically intertwined.
We looked at how this entire system is powered by the ultimate magnetic source, the divine soul, which gives us our polarities and structures our reality through the strict laws of attraction and repulsion.
We navigated the strict material auditing at the Day of Judgment, overseen by Gabriel, the trustworthy spirit, anchored in the physical node of Jerusalem to ground the cosmic electrical event.
We met our invisible celestial companions, the driver actively guiding our compass like GPS, and the witness flawlessly recording our flight data in the black box.
And finally, we zoomed out to see the true purpose of this magnificent mechanism. An evolutionary training ground where humans share space with unseen dimensions, all striving for an ultimate promotion to an angelic state in a constantly expanding universe.
It is a breathtakingly mechanical and yet deeply, purposefully spiritual framework. I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you go about your day. The next time you reach out and feel a spark of static electricity on a doorknob, or the next time you sit at your desk and play with a pair of magnets, feeling that squishy invisible force push and pull against your fingers, ask yourself, are you just observing the cold, dead laws of physics, or are you actually holding the very blueprint of your own soul in your hands?
A profound question to carry with you.
And once again, I want to remind you that all the brilliant, provocative, and highly intricate intellectual work we discussed today is the exclusive property of Dr. Khaled Waleed. This is his framework, his map of the cosmos, his synthesis of theology and physics.
The architecture of his cosmology truly warrants a closer, dedicated look.
It absolutely does. If you want to dive deeper into these concepts, if you want to explore the physics of the soul and the mechanics of the Jaren for yourself, I strongly encourage you to search for and subscribe to the Almighty Covenant YouTube channel right now. There is so much more depth to his work that we couldn't even touch on today.
Go check it out. You won't regret it.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep learning, and we'll see you next time.